America's Got Talent 2024 has been an emotional roller coaster.
Just a small town girl, living in a lonely world.
Richard Goodall has won the show. And the internet is going crazy over his overnight fame. Why? Because this charming man isn't a musician, but a small-town school janitor. His tearful and beautiful life story will leave you inspired and amazed. Humble beginnings. Richard was born on October 9, 1968, in the small town of Terre Haute, Indiana. He came from a modest and loving middle-class family, the kind where everyone lives together and pitches in for the family's finances. Life wasn't too hard, and he enjoyed a decent upbringing. From a very young age, Richard found his love for music. He would spend hours shut in his room with his Radio Shack stereo, singing along to all his favorite songs, especially the hits of the early 80s band, Journey. Richard dreamed of someday having his own band and performing on a big stage. He never received any formal vocal training, but out of pure passion and love for music, he joined the local church choir and sang at every talent show during his school years. However, as he graduated from high school, he realized that he needed to start working soon and get a steady-paying job to support his family. While they weren't struggling, college was not an affordable option, and neither was taking out a loan. Choosing stability and decent pay, Richard took a job as a janitor at Chauncey Rose Middle School, just 3 blocks from his home. Richard was genuinely happy with the job. It wasn't his passion, but it provided stability and allowed him to contribute to his family. For over 36 years, Richard took pride in keeping the school premises clean and safe for the children. Richard spent his entire life in his hometown. He grew up there, went to school, took up a job, got married, had kids and grandkids, adopted 4 chihuahuas, and became known as the local singing janitor. The singing janitor. Richard's love for music never faded. He couldn't go to college for music or try his luck at becoming a performer, but that didn't stop him from singing his heart out whenever he wanted. More often than not, Richard would sing at work, filling the empty school hallways with his charming voice. It didn't take long for the students and teachers to notice. Everyone at school loved and appreciated his singing. Richard Goodall became known as the singing janitor, and everyone looked forward to his performances at school events, especially during Veterans Day celebrations, when he would sing "God Bless the USA" by Lee Greenwood, a big hit in the community. The school kids even showed him how to use social media, and Richard started making videos of himself singing and posting them online, where he regularly garnered a couple thousand views. Outside of school, Richard reunited with his old musician buddies and formed the band Menopause. The local band started by performing at karaoke nights in the 90s before gradually moving on to sports bars and local radio stations. However, the band's journey came to a sudden halt during the COVID-19 pandemic. To make matters worse, in 2021, Richard's world was turned upside down when his wife Patty was diagnosed with cancer, a battle no one ever wants to face. Richard did everything he could to support her, standing by her side as she fought the disease. He poured all his love and strength into helping her, but cancer is a cruel enemy. On June 19, 2021, Patty lost her battle against cancer. The pain of losing her was unbearable. After all, they had been married for 30 years. Losing his wife felt like losing a part of himself. When you're married for so long and they pass away, it feels like they've left a void, and you have to figure out who you are without them. Music helped Richard find his way again. A few months after Patty's death, he started singing again at bar karaoke nights. The band reunited, performing once again at bars and local events. Music became his refuge, a way to unwind and reconnect with the community. During one of the annual school events in 2022, the teachers encouraged Richard to pick a song that truly showcased his talent. Richard already had a song in mind, his favorite band Journey's famous anthem, "Don't Stop Believin'." Everyone grooved along to his performance as they always did every year. But this time, something was different. As Richard sang, one of the teaching assistants recorded him and posted the video on TikTok. No one saw it coming, but by the next morning, the video had gone viral, reaching over 100,000 views. By the end of the weekend, it had over 1 million views, with Journey fans praising Richard's powerful performance. Among his new fans was his childhood idol, Steve Perry, the lead vocalist of Journey, who commented on the TikTok video saying, "I love this." Overnight, the local singing janitor had turned into an internet sensation. Almost 2 years later, as his viral video continued gaining attention, the producers of America's Got Talent noticed it. Judge Howie Mandel reacted to it on his TikTok, saying that Richard needed to be on AGT. Soon after, an invitation was sent for Richard to audition for the show. Feeling both excited and amazed, Richard accepted the offer. The small-town janitor was about to step onto one of the biggest stages in the world. The big stage. This was his first time ever leaving his hometown, and his first time on a flight. In Richard's mind, he was just going to fly on a plane, sing a song, fly back home, and have a nice little YouTube video as a memory. But little did he know what was going to happen next. On May 27th, Richard got on stage for the very first time in front of a big crowd of strangers and AGT's famous judges. He was nervous and overwhelmed, and Simon Cowell had to tell him to relax and go for it. Determined, Richard took a deep breath and began to sing the one song that always boosted his confidence, "Don't Stop Believin'." His performance was incredible, surprising the entire studio audience. He earned not only a standing ovation from the audience and judges, but Richard's talent and story also touched Heidi Klum, who pressed the golden buzzer, sending him straight to the live shows. As golden confetti fell around him, Richard felt overwhelmed with emotion, realizing that his dream was coming true. As soon as he got off stage, the first person he called to share the news with was his fiancée, Angie Vanovan. Angie had been his #1 supporter for the past few years, and she had in fact urged Richard to go for AGT when he had doubts. You see, a few months after the loss of Patty Goodall, Richard's video had gone viral. At the time, he had just returned to singing at bar karaoke nights. Angie Vanovan followed the bar's Facebook page, which posted videos of Richard singing there. She reached out through Facebook, and the two hit it off on New Year's Day 2022. Ever since, she had helped Richard overcome the grief of losing his wife and supported him wholeheartedly in pursuing music as his passion. But let's get back to the story. The stage was set for Richard, and it was time to prepare for the live shows at AGT. He had won over audiences and producers with his powerful voice and humble personality. Given his age, the AGT support staff ensured that he had everything he needed, from help with social media to emotional support during the intense competition. A small music team joined him to help choose songs that showcased his vocal range and emotional depth. However, there was a small problem. Richard was already 55 years old and worked as a school janitor, meaning he didn't make much money. This made it hard for him to afford plane tickets, hotels in California, and other travel-related expenses for the live shows. After all, Richard would have to spend at least 10 days in California for the live show round, and even more if he made it to the finals. But then, something heartwarming happened. Chris Bond, a fellow resident of Terre Haute, Indiana, started a GoFundMe campaign to raise $15,000. His message was, "Let's give Terre Haute, Indiana's AGT Golden Buzzer winner, our support." Chris's campaign aimed to ensure that Richard didn't have to worry about money. The fund would cover Richard's and his family's travel expenses and any other costs that might arise. The campaign started on May 30th, 2024, and by June 9th, it had already reached $19,000, with 382 people contributing. The community's support was truly amazing, allowing Richard to focus on the competition, backed by the love of his hometown. As the live show approached, excitement in Terre Haute was at an all-time high. The whole community rallied behind Richard, organizing watch parties and voting drives to support their local hero. On August 13th, the day of the live show, families and friends gathered around their TVs, eager to see Richard perform again, no matter what happened in the competition. But to be honest, this was not really Richard's first time trying out for a talent show. In fact, he had been rejected once on America's Got Talent before. Failed auditions. For years, people around Richard had kept telling him how amazing his singing was and encouraged him to try out for a singing competition. Finally, in 2008, he decided to give it a shot. He had seen the love and support he got on social media whenever he shared his singing, and he felt it was time to take the next step. The Voice, one of the biggest singing competitions, seemed like the perfect place to show his talent. As always, Richard chose the song that meant the most to him, "Don't Stop Believin'." He poured his heart into the performance and sent in his audition video, hoping it would be his big break. But then, Richard received an email from The Voice that shattered his hopes. It said, "Hello Richard, thank you so much for auditioning in our virtual open call. We have reviewed your performance of Don't Stop Believin', and unfortunately, you will not be moving on to the next round. We hope to see you again next season." These words hit Richard hard. He had believed in his talent and thought he had a real chance, but the rejection felt like a punch in the gut. The truth was, Richard had always been told he was damn good, and now it started to feel like that wasn't true. He wasn't used to being criticized, but instead of letting this rejection bring him down, he decided to turn it into motivation. The Voice may have turned him away, but Richard wasn't going to let that end his dream. With a heavy heart, he decided to audition for America's Got Talent the next year, in 2009. Unfortunately, he was rejected again and didn't make it past the open call. But dealing with that rejection was nothing compared to the pressure Richard faced when he was met with unexpected fame. Struggles with fame. For a man who had lived a quiet, simple life, the sudden shift to being a public figure was more than Richard could handle. Richard wasn't shielded from the harsh side of fame. As he became more well-known, he became a target for online trolls and negative comments, something he had never dealt with before. While the internet is great for sharing talent, it can also be really cruel. Richard started receiving hurtful remarks about his looks, age, and even his talent. These comments, though from strangers, deeply affected him and added to the growing pressure he already felt as the competition went on. Richard began to struggle with the demands of the show. The long hours of rehearsals, the intense public scrutiny, and the constant need to deliver perfect performances took a toll on his mental and emotional well-being. Richard, who had always been a private and quiet person, suddenly found himself in the spotlight in a way that made him feel exposed and vulnerable. He felt immense pressure to maintain the image of the humble, talented custodian that the public loved, and he began to worry that he couldn't live up to it. While his performances remained strong, those close to him noticed that the joy in his eyes was slowly fading. He was doing what he loved, but the weight of everyone's expectations was becoming too heavy. What was supposed to be a celebration of his talent was turning into a nightmare he couldn't escape. Richard found himself trapped in a cycle of anxiety and stress, trying to live up to the image that had been created around him, while losing sight of who he really was. At the end of the day, Richard was 55. He realized that show business was too much for him to handle. Maybe if he had become a performer when he was young, it would have been a different story. But for now, he just wanted to get through the show and then return to a simple life with his family, playing small-time gigs with his band. Final showdown. After almost 3 months of preparing and rehearsing, it was time for the live rounds in August 2024. For the quarterfinals, Richard decided to perform Michael Bolton's "How Am I Supposed to Live Without You?", dedicated to his fiancée, and in the semifinals he performed Survivor's Eye of the Tiger. He received a standing ovation and overwhelming votes for both performances. Before the final round, he had one last thing to do. He flew in Angie, her sister, his best friend, and his grandkids, and gathered some of the behind-the-scenes AGT folks who had become like family to him during his time on the show. In a private, intimate ceremony on Malibu Beach, Richard married Angie just days before the final. Richard now had a lot of fans rooting for him, his family, his entire local community, his band, hundreds of thousands of viewers, and, surprisingly enough, even the judges of AGT. But there was one supporter Richard had never expected: his childhood favorite band, Journey. He received support from the official Journey account on TikTok, which reposted his video to show their backing. And that's not all. The founding member and lead guitarist of Journey, Neil Shun, brought the entire band to the AGT finals to perform with Richard. And the song for the night was, you guessed it, Don't Stop Believin'. Richard won the title of Season 19 champion, a new Kia car, and $1 million. After the show, Richard revealed his plans to return to a simple life. He wanted to put some of the $1 million prize toward a double-wide trailer so he could move into a senior living community in Florida and enjoy retirement, with the occasional pasta and seafood dinner. Nothing too fancy. Looking ahead, Richard imagined a life where he could balance his love for music with his commitment to his community. He dreamed of using his platform to inspire others, especially the students who had always believed in him. In fact, Richard started a scholarship fund called Believing at Chauncey Rose Middle School for students interested in music. The funds would help them enroll in music camps, get instruments or lessons, or pursue a college degree in music. Richard Goodall's story is a reminder that extraordinary moments can happen to anyone at any time, as long as you don't stop believing.